Most World Cup fans are choosing host cities based on one thing: the match ticket. But I've found that's not always the smartest way to plan a World Cup trip, because some cities give you a great game, others give you a great game and an unforgettable vacation. So instead of ranking these cities based on stadiums or match schedules, I'm ranking them based on the overall travel experience. Which host cities are actually worth spending a few extra days in? And if I could only choose one city for the 2026 World Cup, which would it be? Let's start with a destination that most international fans are completely overlooking. Most people outside the United States haven't heard much about Kansas City, and that's exactly why it lands at number 10. Not because it's a bad destination. Actually, it's the opposite. Kansas City might end up being one of the biggest surprises of the entire tournament. If you're looking for iconic landmarks or world-famous attractions, there are stronger options higher on this list. But if your goal is to enjoy the World Cup without constantly fighting crowds, Kansas City has some advantages. The city has one of the strongest soccer cultures in America, which means the atmosphere should be excellent once the tournament begins. What I really like is that everything feels more manageable here. Hotels will likely be easier to find. Getting around should be less stressful, and you'll spend less time standing in lines and more time enjoying the experience. It also gives visitors a chance to see a side of America that many international travelers never get to experience. To me, Kansas City feels less like a tourist destination and more like a real American city. For some travelers, that's actually a huge advantage. But if you're the kind of person who plans entire vacations around food, the next city deserves a much closer look. Houston might be the most underrated food city in America. And honestly, I don't think that's even a controversial statement anymore. One thing I've noticed about Houston is that almost every neighborhood feels like you're discovering a different part of the world. You can have incredible Mexican food for lunch, authentic Vietnamese food for dinner, and some of the best barbecue you've ever tasted somewhere in between. For World Cup travelers, that's a bigger deal than it sounds. Remember, you're not spending all day inside a stadium. You're spending several days exploring the city, eating out, meeting fans, and making memories between matches. That's where Houston really shines. The city also feels incredibly international, which should make it one of the more welcoming destinations for visiting fans from around the world. Now, there is one challenge. Summer in Houston can be brutally hot. If you're planning long outdoor sightseeing days, this probably isn't the ideal host city. But if food, culture, and diversity are near the top of your travel priorities, Houston offers a lot more than most people expect. And if Houston's heat sounds a little intimidating, don't worry. Our next city is almost the complete opposite. Boston is one of the easiest cities to enjoy on this entire list. And sometimes, that's exactly what you want during a World Cup trip. Instead of spending half your vacation figuring out transportation, traffic, or complicated logistics, Boston lets you focus on enjoying the city. What surprised me most is how walkable it feels compared to many other major American destinations. You can spend an afternoon exploring historic neighborhoods, grab dinner along the waterfront, and still have plenty of time left in your day. For first-time visitors to the United States, that's a huge advantage. The city also has a character that's very different from places like Miami, Dallas, or Los Angeles. It feels older, more compact, and in many ways, easier to experience. If you're looking for a host city where sightseeing naturally fits into your World Cup plans, Boston is one of the strongest options. The reason it doesn't rank higher is simple. The cities above it offer something bigger, more energy, more attractions, or a more unique World Cup experience. And starting with the next city, the rankings become much harder to separate. If you're looking for a city that gives you a little bit of everything, Philadelphia is a very strong contender. To me, Philadelphia sits in a sweet spot that a lot of World Cup travelers will appreciate. It has the history that many international visitors want to experience. It has passionate sports fans. It has great food, and it's usually easier on the budget than some of the cities higher on this list. One thing I really like about Philadelphia is that it feels more approachable than New York. You still get that big city energy, but without quite as much chaos. For World Cup fans planning to visit multiple host cities, that's a major advantage. You can spend your mornings exploring historic landmarks, your afternoons enjoying the city's food scene, and your evenings soaking up the World Cup atmosphere. The only reason it doesn't rank higher is that the cities ahead offer experiences that are a little more unique. And the next city is a perfect example of that. Atlanta feels like a city built for major events. Whether it's the Olympics, the Super Bowl, or now the World Cup, Atlanta has a track record of handling massive crowds and international visitors. That matters more than many fans realize, because during a World Cup trip, convenience can be just as important as attractions. What surprised me most about Atlanta is how much there is to do beyond the obvious tourist spots. Neighborhoods like Midtown and the Beltline give the city a lot of personality, and the food scene keeps getting better every year. It's also one of the easier host cities to reach from almost anywhere in the world thanks to its airport connections. If you're a first-time visitor to the United States, Atlanta is one of the safest choices on this list. Maybe it doesn't have the beaches of Miami or the iconic skyline of New York, but it does a lot of things really well. And sometimes that's exactly what makes a trip enjoyable. But if you're looking for a city that feels completely different from anywhere else in America, number 5 might surprise you. Seattle is one of those cities that constantly exceeds expectations. People hear about the rain and immediately move on. But summer is when Seattle really shines. And for a World Cup taking place in June and July, that's a big advantage. What makes Seattle special isn't just the city itself. It's the setting. You've got mountains in the distance, water almost everywhere you look, beautiful parks, and some of the most impressive scenery of any host city in the tournament. I've found that Seattle is one of the easiest places to extend into a longer vacation. You can spend a few days exploring the city, then head out for incredible day trips and outdoor adventures. The soccer culture is another major plus. The atmosphere during World Cup matches should be outstanding. For nature lovers, outdoor enthusiasts, and travelers who want something different from the typical big city experience, Seattle is incredibly hard to beat. And honestly, this is where the rankings get really interesting. Because from this point forward, we're talking about cities that could easily become the highlight of your entire World Cup trip. If scenery is one of the reasons you travel, the Bay Area immediately stands out. This is one of those destinations where even people who have never visited can recognize the landmarks. The Golden Gate Bridge, the waterfront, the hills, the views. It's the kind of place that feels familiar before you even arrive. What I really like about the Bay Area for World Cup travelers is that the soccer becomes just one part of a much larger trip. You can spend time exploring San Francisco, visit nearby coastal towns, take a day trip to wine country, or simply enjoy some of the most beautiful scenery in the United States. The downside, of course, is cost. This probably won't be the cheapest World Cup destination, but if your budget allows it, the experience can be absolutely worth it. And here's the interesting part. As great as the Bay Area is, the top 3 cities offer something it can't. They don't just give you a great destination. They give you a World Cup atmosphere that could define the entire tournament experience. And that's where we're heading next. Los Angeles is one of those cities that almost feels unfair in a ranking like this. Because no matter what kind of traveler you are, there's a good chance you'll find something to love here. If you're into beaches, you've got them. If you're into entertainment, nobody does it better. If you love food, you'll have more options than you can possibly fit into one trip. And if you're the kind of person who likes to say, while I'm here, I might as well see a few famous places, Los Angeles gives you plenty of opportunities. What surprised me most is how many different trips Los Angeles can be. 2 World Cup fans could spend the same week here and have completely different experiences. One could spend their time around the beaches. The other could focus on Hollywood, sports, food, and nightlife. And both would leave feeling like they barely scratched the surface. The biggest drawback is transportation. Traffic is real, and it can eat up more of your vacation than you'd like. But if you're willing to plan around that, Los Angeles delivers one of the most complete travel experiences of any host city. Still, the next two cities have something that even Los Angeles can't quite match during a World Cup. If your idea of a perfect World Cup trip includes beaches, nightlife, international energy, and fans from all over the world, Miami is going to be very hard to beat. To me, Miami feels like a city that was made for an event like the World Cup. The atmosphere is already international on a normal day. During the tournament, it could feel like one giant football festival. What I love most about Miami is that the excitement doesn't stop when a match ends. You can spend the morning on the beach, watch a World Cup match in the afternoon, then enjoy the city's restaurants, waterfront areas, and nightlife long after the final whistle. For many international visitors, Miami will probably feel more familiar than almost any other American city. Spanish is spoken everywhere. The Latin American influence is impossible to miss. And the energy level is on a completely different level from most destinations on this list. Of course, you'll pay for that experience. Hotels won't be cheap, the weather will be hot, and crowds will be everywhere. But if you're looking for the ultimate World Cup party atmosphere, Miami is an incredible choice. So why isn't it number one? Because the top spot isn't just a great World Cup destination. It's one of the greatest city trip destinations in the world. If I could only attend the World Cup in one American host city, this would be my choice. And honestly, it wouldn't be a difficult decision, because you're not just visiting a World Cup host city, you're visiting one of the most iconic destinations on the planet. What makes New York different is the sheer number of experiences packed into one trip. You can spend the morning exploring world-famous landmarks, the afternoon discovering neighborhoods that feel completely different from each other, and the evening surrounded by fans from every corner of the world. I've found that many cities on this list excel in one or two areas. New York seems to excel in almost everything: food, attractions, museums, entertainment, nightlife, public transportation, people watching. The list goes on. And during the World Cup, the atmosphere could be unlike anything we've ever seen in the United States. Fans from dozens of countries, watch parties across the city, and a level of energy that few places in the world can match. If this is your first World Cup trip, New York gives you the best chance of combining an incredible tournament experience with an unforgettable vacation. And quick heads up, I've added some of my favorite travel essentials in the description that can make your trip a lot easier. Definitely worth a quick look. Before you book anything, here's some advice I'd give to every World Cup traveler. First, don't choose a host city based only on the match. Ask yourself what you'll be doing before and after the game. A city that keeps you entertained for 3 or 4 days can provide much better value than a city that only excites you for 90 minutes. Second, book hotels as early as possible. The best locations will disappear long before the tournament begins. Third, if your budget allows it, consider visiting more than one host city. One thing I've noticed about the 2026 World Cup is that every city offers a very different experience. And finally, leave room for flexibility. Some of the best World Cup memories come from fan zones, watch parties, and unexpected experiences that aren't on your itinerary. The 2026 FIFA World Cup is going to be much more than a soccer tournament. For many fans, it'll be a chance to explore parts of the United States they've never seen before. And if you ask me, that's what makes choosing the right host city so important. The match may be the reason you book the trip, but the city often becomes the part you remember most. If you enjoyed this ranking, make sure to like the video and subscribe for more World Cup travel guides, host city breakdowns, and practical tips as we get closer to 2026. And now I want to hear from you. If you could only visit one US World Cup host city, which one would you choose?